Hey, what's going on, Purple People podcast fans? Welcome to this week's show. It is Friday, January 24th, 2020, and we're going to preview the Pro Bowl / Super Bowl? Question mark?
Pro Bowl's debatable.
The most important game of the season?
Oh, yeah, fucking Pro Bowl, man.
Ugh. Anyways, I'm Kyle Smith. This is Kyle West. Adam Carlson is out this week, so just go ahead and strap in. All right. This won't be a professional show per se, but we're going to cover a little bit of Vikings news. We're going to talk about the Pro Bowl, the Super Bowl. Just something to fill in.
We got some.
Oh, go ahead.
News about. So there's a little bit of everything in this episode.
Yeah, for sure. These shows, just as a reminder, got 2 people in already, so thank you for that. Oh man, work never stops. I'm getting emails from work now. Just let you guys know that it'll be a little sporadic. Obviously, we're going to cover the Super Bowl before. We'll probably make some predictions. Whenever Adam gets back, we're going to do some awards from the Vikings season that just wrapped up, and we'll get to that later. But for now, we wanted to get a show out in between conference championship weekend and the Super Bowl. We'll probably do another one next week, I would assume. But yeah, this one's called There's Something About Gary. I wanted to make a play on words for a great movie that I liked growing up, and we have Gary Kubiak news, and I guess we can lead off with that. We talked about it last show. We wondered who would be the offensive coordinator. Kevin Stefanski did get hired by the Cleveland Browns, so he's out. The DC is also gone, but the offensive coordinator spot is filled by one Gary Kubiak, Super Bowl head coach Gary Kubiak.
Right, and he has the most wins in franchise history as a head coach for the Houston Texans as well.
It's very good.
Yeah.
This is what I personally wanted. We know that Gary stepped away from the Denver Broncos after their Super Bowl season with Peyton Manning and that tremendous defense when they beat the Panthers in Super Bowl 50. He stepped away because he said his health was more important. I don't think that being an offensive coordinator is as stressful as being a head coach. I'm sure it's up there, but maybe he just needed a hiatus to reset, whatever. Obviously, with anything in life, your health comes first, so I hope that doesn't become an issue again. But I know I am pumped to have this guy as the offensive coordinator. And I thought it was a weird kind of complexity this past season where Kevin Stefanski got a lot of the fame and the glory for anything that went right.
Right.
But he was in his ear a lot, that being Gary Kubiak. So this is going to be interesting because we got a lot of changes coming up that we covered with this season. Mike Zimmer's in his last year. Kirk Cousins is. Rick Spielman. So if they can put it all together, third time's a charm, who knows, man?
Yeah. As for Gary Kubiak, Adam had speculated that maybe his son Clint was going to be promoted to offensive coordinator. I would have been okay with that, but I like them just going the veteran route and just giving it full on to Gary Kubiak. You and I had speculated a little bit last season, which, boy, doesn't it feel weird that we're talking about last season already? But we had speculated last season that maybe Gary Kubiak was doing more behind the scenes in terms of play calling and whatnot than what we all knew. So, because we attributed a lot of the success that the Vikings had, to bringing in Gary Kubiak. So I like the fact that they're promoting him to offensive coordinator. I got a quote here from Mike Zimmer down in the notes if you want to read it here in a minute, about how it's important to keep the same system in place. So while it is going to be a different play caller, obviously, than Kevin Stefanski, they are trying to keep the same system so that they're not restarting. I think that is really important. And this could be maybe a one-year thing with Gary Kubiak where he comes in, he gets to fully implement his system, and then maybe after this year, he steps aside and lets his kid take over, Clint. That's some real way early speculation on my part, but I could see that being a situation that the Vikings would be interested in doing as well, too.
Yeah, I I don't know. I don't know how old he is. I'm going to Google his age really fast. But the important thing here, as I read the Mike Zimmer quote, is Mike Zimmer is quoted as saying, it'll be the same system. I think it's important not just for Kirk, but the entire offense to have the same system, same calls, things like that. So when they come in here on day one, it's not completely foreign. And that's the end of the quotes there. Right. I think that's super important because it makes up for lost time. And the Vikings offense, and in times and in spurts this season, was clicking in a very good way, which is crazy because usually, and even with the history of this team, it's not necessarily the first thing I think of is offense. I think of all the amazing defenses that we've had. But I like that. Mm-hmm. That's good. Like I said, third time's a charm. But the other thing that's not in here, and I've heard this many times, is this would be his like fifth offensive coordinator in a row, fifth season for Kirk. It just gets annoying after a while. Think about Sam Bradford too, man. Way back in the day, I'm not comparing the two because Kirk's obviously better, but put the injury aside, that guy, like every single season of his career, had to learn a new language, a new scheme, a new system, whatever you want to throw in there. And he said, I would have liked to have had a little bit more consistency there. Who knows what would have happened? Right. I feel the same way for Kirk.
I do, but I also feel like with the Vikings for the past couple seasons, they've worked hard to try to keep the same general system and scheme in place. So while it may be a new play caller, they're trying to keep it to where it's not restarting every year. So he has had different play callers, but I feel like the system is evolving and trying to keep the same sort of terminology, but just have better, a better system for it. Because when they brought in Kubiak, from 2018 to 2019, when they brought Kubiak in, there was a definite improvement in the Vikings offense. We improved statistically, I think, across the board by bringing him in. So it's keeping the same kind of style of system, but just having more success with it.
Yeah, and his fingerprints are everywhere. Don't get it twisted. Everywhere he's been, I mean, the guy is he's winning and made a system around it. It's the Shanahans. He's very close with them. These are winning football teams. Now, the Texans haven't won a Super Bowl yet, neither have we. But if you can win a Super Bowl with noodle arm Peyton Manning, I have faith in Kirk Cousins to do that. I know he's not going to do what Peyton did at the line of scrimmage. I get it. But that was an awful, like almost unwatchable season by Peyton Manning. And I see Kirk being better than that version of Peyton Manning. So I have high hopes, and I think the ceiling is a lot higher when Kubiak is around.
Yeah, I do too. I really like that they promoted Gary Kubiak to that role. I think that's a very smart move by Mike Zimmer and Rick Spielman.
He was born August 15th, 1961. He is 58, so he will turn 59 this season. So he's still relatively young for football age. He's still got, if he's going to the average, a good 5 to 6 years left. So that's good.
Right.
Broncos head coach from 15 to 17 and Texans head coach from 2006 to 2013. Man, that's weird. I only remember him because he won in Denver. I forgot that he was with Houston for a very, very long time.
Oh, yeah.
But that's the main topic number one today. We wanted to throw that in. I wanted to get it out of the way first because I'm super excited.
That's a big story. That is a big story. Yep.
Yeah, it's definitely a good story. And what's up? We got some people in the chat too. Sorry we haven't highlighted yet. Scott Swab is here. Tiffany's here. Thanks for joining us, guys.
Scott wants to know, did the Vikings sign a vet O-line from the Patriots? I heard that in another podcast somewhere. I was researching topics right before doing the notes, right before we started recording this show. I did not see anything about that, but just because I didn't see it doesn't mean that didn't happen. So if anyone in the chat can verify an offensive lineman signing from the Vikings, from the Patriots to the Vikings, let us know, and we will talk about it.
I got it right here. 5 days ago, 10 future reserve free agent signings. So we have. Oh, let's check the date on this. All right, January 12th, 2020. So this is 2 weeks ago.
Okay.
Free agent signings here. And I don't want to read this guy's bio. This is making for a terrible podcast. I will keep looking through this if I find something else. I'm seeing Dylan Mitchell. We know about him. Stacey Keeley, Braylon Addison. Cornerbacks, Colonel Hall. I don't see anything about a tackle on here, but this is not the same. Not exactly the same time period. So we'll check back with you on that.
Right. I don't pay too much attention to those future reserve contract signings. No, I know it's probably a big deal to the 10 players that were just signed to them, but usually they don't really amount to much. I hate to shit all over people's hopes and dreams with that one, but yeah.
Oh, here's a good one. That was good. That was good, Scott. I don't want to undermine you on that. That was a good one. Kyle doesn't mean that either. Just I'm in the same thing. It's January, and there's a long road until September. So,
right.
I'll keep diving into that and see if we can get back to you. Who would you want in the first round of the draft? Can we have Joe Burrow at 25? Is that possible?
I don't know.
I don't know, man. I think the emphasis it needs, if you watch last week's episode, I gave my 3 areas that need improvement. We need wide receiver and corner depth badly. We're going to talk about the upcoming free agents here on this show here in about 10 minutes. I think that the offensive line still needs a look. We need guards. We may need another tackle on the left side and the blind side for Kirk. I don't think this team goes anywhere but offensive line, defensive tackle, or corner in the first round. I don't see him going anywhere but there. I could be dead wrong, but those seem to be pretty big needs, especially with the upcoming guys we may potentially lose.
So I am also under, you can never not have enough offensive linemen, as we have learned here in Minnesota. So if you have a time to take a road grader offensive lineman at any one of the positions out there, go ahead and do it. You should always do that. I think that the way with the players leaving in free agency and just the depth needed, we're going to have a lot of unhappy Vikings fans when we draft another cornerback. Because people are going to say, well, there's Mike Zimmer only paying attention to the defense and wanting to have another toy to play with out there on the defensive side of things. He's neglecting the offensive side of the ball again. But man, the way it's looking, our secondary didn't really hold up that well last year, and so we could be looking at bringing in another corner.
I'm in agreement with Scott Schwab. I truthfully, and we can kind of mend this together, I agree with you 100%. But you know what? I'm going to swear here, and I'm going to let you guys know ahead of time so you can turn it down if you have kids that are listening or whatever, if you don't like that. But I'm over those people that talk shit about the Vikings because I'm trying to figure out the context too, because I get mad at this team too in the heat of the moment. I'll admit that first and foremost, but it's always somebody never being satisfied, and that really pisses me off. I can't believe Mike Zimmer took another corner in the first round. Did you look at the secondary last year? Because it was ass. It was terrible, and that's with Anthony Harris and Pro Bowl freaking Harrison Smith there. The corners are not good, and I don't know if it was just a down year. They've been good at times. They've had flashes and very small flashes of greatness,
right?
In my opinion. But last year, they were terrible. And if they take a corner again, so be it. Because I can tell you right now, we're not keeping all the corners that we have right now. Trey Wayne might be gone. Xavier Rhodes may very well be cut. Mackenzie Alexander, I think he's a free agent.
Yeah.
Mike Hughes is hurt. Use your brain, guys. Use your brain.
So Scott said that the Vikings should try to retain Anthony Harris as priority number 1. Yeah. I agree. Anthony Harris is going to get a big time contract, last
year with interceptions. And we've been saying it, and I'm not bragging on just myself, but this show specifically, we have been calling out how good this guy has been since he started doing fill-in spots the last 2 years. Last year, he was more prominent, more of a household name. This year, he was a starter. This kid's a stud, man. He's a good football player. He makes plays.
He is going to get himself a big boy contract, and it is not going to be. It is not going to be with the Vikings. I just don't think that we have the cap space. I don't think we have the cap space to throw the kind of money that Anthony Harris is going to get.
Let's just tie this in real quick. We'll talk about the Pro Bowl in a little bit because I don't want to talk about the Pro Bowl right now.
I don't really care about the Pro Bowl.
Yeah, no.
Yeah, I really don't.
Let's talk about the free agents while we're here. So I'm in agreement with Scott with this name, the list of names right here. With the talent that he is, I would keep him. But we've got Everson Griffin on a club option, Trey Waynes, Anthony Harris, Rashad Hill, Andrew Sandejo, Mackenzie Alexander, Dan Bailey, Britton Colquitt, Sean Mannion, Dakota Dozier, Amir Abdullah, Brett Jones, we're not done, Laquan Treadwell, CJ Ham, Kentrell Brothers, David Morgan, J-Ron Kerr, Stephen Weatherly, Eric Wilson, and Marcus Sherrills. Every one of those people I just listed is an unrestricted free agent.
Well, there was a couple of really quick. I know, because I did the same thing when I wrote it. CJ Ham and Eric Wilson are restricted free agents.
Sorry, I'm looking at it now. So yes, they put it in. So restricted free agents, we have a little more say in that. But, man, hey, I got a hot take for you. Everson Griffin's not in my top 3 on here, and I have nothing bad to say about him. You know who my other 2 are? I know you know, Kyle. They're a pair.
Yeah, Britton Colquitt and Dan Bailey are not going anywhere they're not going anywhere for Minnesota.
They're going to be cheap, but good God, man, those guys have made a world of difference.
Right.
Especially right. The woes we've had the last couple of years. Those guys aren't going anywhere either. So that should give you hope.
Like you said, CJ Ham being a restricted free agent, the Vikings have a little more say on what happens with him contractually. So he is definitely a player that they want to keep. I mean, he just went to the Pro Bowl. He had an outstanding season for a fullback for Minnesota. CJ Ham is one that they're definitely going to retain. J-Ron Curse is a player I want to see them keep around.
Yeah, I don't think he's coming back. Did we talk about his little Twitter tirade?
I might have missed that. What was the Twitter tirade?
Sorry, guys. It's cold as hell in my house, and I'm going to turn the heat up. So, basically, he was saying online, and he was interacting with fans saying, well, they don't appreciate me. They don't want me here. I think we talked about it in the chat. It was
yeah, I remember that.
It's going to – I don't know. You know the upper echelon and management for this team is looking at their players' Twitters.
Right.
Not a good look. Especially when, like, I get it, man. You're a 7th-round pick. You're a proven special teams player. You filled in and made a couple plays here and there. So you want to get something to where you're like, cool, I feel the love here.
Right.
That's very broad, but that's not a good way to go about it. That's not a good way at all.
I'm going to make a bold statement. I think Laquan Treadwell should be back on a 1-year contract. If they can sign him kind of like on a cheap 1-year prove-it deal, bring him in. That doesn't mean that he's guaranteed a roster spot. It means that you're going to bring him in along with whatever drafted receivers and free agent signings that the Vikings are able to pick up, and you're going to say, fight for a roster spot in training camp and preseason. I would be okay with letting Laquan Treadwell do that.
Yeah, I like that too. I think that was a wake-up call for him last year. I think also that opportunity and luck was in his favor, that he got to get a call again. Right. Because up until that point, it was very much a disappointment. But, hey, I like the kid. I don't have anything bad to say about him. The performance on the field is what it is. But, yeah, on a 1-year prove-it, why not?
Yeah, prove a deal.
Come in and earn a vet minimum or something salary. Like, he's obviously still in shape. He's still a good body. He's just not. He didn't live up to the draft position that he was in.
Hey, can you look up how old Dan Bailey is for me, really quick?
Yeah, I got you.
Will you do that? Because I wanted to talk about how I know when he left Dallas, he was talking about retiring, and the Vikings were kind of able to coax him and bring him in. And so I'm just wondering how old Dan Bailey is.
Oh wow!
And whether.
Well, Dan Bailey's birthday is in 2 days. He's my age. So he'll be 32.
So he's only 32, so that's young for a kicker. I mean, kickers can kick until they're in their 40s and still be good. So I was just kind of wondering whether or not the Vikings need to worry about, his age or him wanting to possibly retire. But I think bringing in Britton Colquitt and really proved that the issue was not Dan Bailey's kicking, but it was the holder. So we got a solid holder. Dan Bailey is back to kicking. The NFL is going to continue to muck around with kickoff rules and stuff to where it don't really matter how good you are on kickoffs. You just need to be a competent field goal kicker, which he is. And so I think that, yeah, we'll be set with bringing those two back. I'm happy with that combination. Are you?
Yeah, 100%.
Yeah.
If Anthony Harris isn't priority number 1, which he should be, those guys are definitely 2 and 3 as a pair, tied at number 2.
I want to see. We haven't talked a lot about Trey Waynes, but I want to see Trey Waynes back in Minnesota. He gets a lot of hate, but I think that he's a good, solid player for Minnesota. He's deserving of a contract.
I'll do an unpopular as well. Unpopular opinion here. I love the guy. I have absolutely nothing to say negative about him. He's been with the team. This would be 10 years or 11. He came in 2010. But I think it's time to part ways with Everson Griffen, unless he's very, very cheap. I'm always on the side of cut a player a year early, but this was the first time in a while where he didn't have double-digit sacks in a season. His pressures are still there. He's still very much a good player, but I think that he's coming at the end of his tenure of his prime and his best days. You got to Bill Belichick this thing, and somebody's going to leave. So if you're not going to get rid of Xavier Rhodes and you're handicapping yourself and handcuffing yourself, I should say, to Xavier Rhodes for another year, you got to let that guy go, which sucks. But you've got a good D end on the other side. Try to find someone else to complement. You know what I mean?
Right. There's going to be a lot of changes for the Vikings roster in 2020. And this really, I think that they need to be more aggressive as well, too, and getting a couple more playmakers on the offensive side of things.
Absolutely.
To surround Kirk Cousins. We've talked about this ad nauseum. We love Kyle Rudolph here on the show. He's been an excellent player for the Vikings, but they really kind of need to move on a little bit from some players like him, and we need to get younger, quicker, faster. And Kyle Rudolph is not young, he's not quick, and he's not fast at this point. So I don't know. I just think that they need to add some dynamic weapons around Kirk Cousins.
Yeah, I think they've done a good job as far as the number 1 and number 2 wide receiver, number 1 and number 2 running back. I think that I wouldn't be surprised if they found one that fell, but like a Kyle Rudolph replacement. I don't know what that is in Irv Smith just yet. I like what I saw, but I did see a rookie. It was very much a rookie this year.
I think he had some rookie growing pains because you look at what Irv was doing in training camp. He was lighting it up, and then kind of you play some big boy football for real. And I think he kind of had his rookie season, man. It's like not everyone gets to moss it up when they go out there their first year. So
right.
We'll see. I will say one thing. I kind of disagree with you on one thing. I think the Vikings. I don't think they did a good job at the wide receiver position. They just got damn lucky that they were able to have what was Stephon Diggs, a 4th-round draft pick, and Adam Thielen, an undrafted free agent, was able to step in and perform at an incredibly high level on both of them. I don't necessarily think that was Rick Spielman doing a good job because his 1st-round pick in Laquan Treadwell did not perform up to expectations at all. So I think the Vikings actually got really lucky at the wide receiver position, as opposed to like, we planned for our undrafted guy and our 4th-round draft pick to just be, we planned for them to be phenomenal players like what they are. So I think that I get what you're saying, but I think the Vikings have to do a better job of addressing the receiver position earlier than what they've did instead of trying to luck into it.
No, I agree with you. I don't know if it came out that way, but I wasn't saying that I think they did necessarily a good job. I think we're set there. But you're right, because if you look at our history, and it's so weird to see it because Adam mentioned it in our chat earlier, but Pro Bowl's going on with the skills competition, and Kirk Cousins is throwing to Cordero Patterson.
Yeah.
Another busted wide receiver 1st-round pick. We're not necessarily known for, outside of the the goats that we pick up in the first round. We're not necessarily known for like LSU, they call themselves DB University,
right?
Or Miami wide receiver university, whatever. We're not exactly known as the wide receiver hub of the NFL. You're right. I think they did luck into some really hardworking guys.
Right.
That was one of the things I said too. One of the things we got to do is get wide receiver depth.
We do.
I am 100% on board with round 3 going and getting a steal that should have been in round 2. Absolutely.
Oh yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Here's how little I know about the Pro Bowl. Cordero Patterson is in the Pro Bowl.
Yep.
What did Cordero Patterson do to get himself in the Pro Bowl?
Return guy, and
return guy.
Okay. That should be but still technically a wide receiver. Man, they robbed him too. One of the competitions I watched today, it was him and Cordero Patterson, Kirk and Cordero, and I believe it was Russell Wilson and Devontae Adams. And those are the two guys that represent from the NFC, respectively, at each position. But it was a timed event. They do the gauntlet where they go, I think, to 5 stations, and then they go around and do it again. They robbed Cordero of an over-the-shoulder pass. Even the referees can't get the damn Pro Bowl right because they're terrible at their job. They're awful. If you guys go on YouTube, they're on there. You can find it. Look for that competition where Kirk throws to Cordero the over-the-shoulder. He had to do it 4 times. And you're like, that's an over-the-shoulder catch. What are you talking about? They don't even know what that is. So good job, referees. You made yourself look like shit again.
I have no idea what his contract is, but would anyone be opposed to Cordero Patterson coming back to Minnesota?
I would not. I wish that he was still here.
I always liked Cordero. I don't think that he quite lived up to
coming back as long as we don't do those stupid ass jet sweeps with him. Stop.
They might. You know what? They might work because everyone's going to be keyed in on Dalvin Cook.
You know what? You say that and it makes sense now. I just don't want those stupid trick plays with him. I don't. Make him a return guy. Let him run down the sideline because he's super fast and do the deep threat there. I don't know. He's not a good route runner. His hands are a little stony sometimes, but he's a good special teams guy. He's a great gunner too for special teams. Great guy. Yeah. Let's see. Let's go down some more of the free agent names here. So we mentioned Trey Waynes, Everson Griffin, Anthony Harris. Rashad Hill's a good plug-and-play guy. I like him. I'd like to see him back if at all possible. Andrew Sendejo for depth, if he can sign for a smaller deal, sure. Don't want to see Mackenzie Alexander going anywhere. He's another guy that could get a good little payday. He's had spots where he stepped up and looked pretty good for his specific role in the nickel. He's a good guy, good player. Sean Mannion, you can go away forever and never come back. Not really too. I'm not sure about Dakota Dozier. I'm kind of indifferent on him either way.
Adam was a little higher on Amir Abdullah than what I was.
I like Amir. I think it's great for depth if he understands he's the number 3.
Yeah, he's kind of just a guy, in my opinion. Kind of just out there for Vikings.
Yeah, I like the depth. That's about it, though. Yeah, it's better that it's what you have instead of having to take a guess and mold a guy. So I guess that's good. And he does catch kickoffs, so that's nice to have too. We talked about Laquan Treadwell, Brett Jones. I'd like to see him come back. I love that kind of depth. That would be great. CJ Ham, I think we all know that we need him back.
He'll be back.
Yeah. That's pretty easy to talk about. Kentrell Brothers. I'm not as high on Brothers as I am on Eric Wilson. Kentrell, unrestricted free agent. Eric Wilson is a restricted free agent, so I would like to see Eric Wilson back. He did make quite a few plays this year.
David Morgan, big old blocking tight end. Pretty good at that. I don't.
Would you keep David Morgan over what's his name, Conklin?
I don't necessarily know. I'm not the guy to be making that kind of prediction. I will say that I don't necessarily know. I want to get more dynamic on offense. And I know that people are going to say, well, you got to have the blocking tight ends to help keep Kirk Cousins upright. And I know all that. But it's like we also need players who can make plays more than what David Morgan can.
Exactly.
And so I don't necessarily know how much of an emphasis you put on bringing in a blocking, just a blocking tight end at this point. I mean, hell, Rob Gronkowski was just a.
He's
Did
a
it matter?
polar bear.
Did it matter if he could block though? Not really, because he could catch
No.
passes.
He
It's like
He could block, but he was a polar bear that could catch a football. He's a humongous, just huge threat. It's crazy.
Right. Can we get that?
It's just a small task. Can you guys find us the next Gronk? Thanks.
Yeah. Can we do that, please?
We talked about Jaron Curse. We're both in agreement. I'd like to see him back. Stephen Weatherly, absolutely. If there's a number 4 on the list for me here, doing a top 5, Stephen Weatherly's on there. I really, really like him. Good rotational D lineman. Eric Wilson already touched on. He made some plays. Marcus Sherrills, love you, buddy. But after that jack up in the divisional round game, you serve really no purpose to me.
Yeah, he's been
one thing that you do. You're not that good at anymore. I'm sorry, man.
He was cut and he was brought back a couple different times, and I just don't see. He was only brought back because the Vikings were injured, and it's like, hey, we know that he knows the system, and we don't have to teach him the system. He can just come in and contribute right away. I don't see him coming back.
I don't either, and it's all right. He had his 9 lives here, and I'm sure he made enough to buy and own a home and nice cars and make investment money. So that's good for him. But you can't be – if Marcus Sherrills is playing corner, we're not going to win that game. I'm just throwing it out there. So if he's doing anything more than that, that's a bad day.
You're right, though, and then we can kind of wrap up this discussion. Kind of to loop back to Sean Mannion. I don't think that he will be back. I don't think that he will be back in Minnesota, but I do think that the backup quarterback position behind Kirk Cousins is going to be interesting to see how the Vikings fill it. Because if they go the route of bringing in another Sean Mannion type veteran quarterback, that's kind of a tell that Minnesota is planning on keeping Kirk Cousins around for the long term. If they look towards the draft, like you speculated, to where they trade up and they get a player with a name attached to him, the Vikings may be looking to have Kirk around to mentor a younger quarterback and move on sooner rather than later. So I think it'll be really interesting to see what they do with that position this year.
Who's going to be around? I don't know if they're going to keep him. Marcus Mariota will be around. He'd be a good backup. I like him. Guys like Geno Smith or Tyrod Taylor's in LA. I don't know, man. It'd be interesting. A veteran wouldn't be a bad move. Who did you say?
Derek Carr.
Oh, no. Somebody will take a chance on him, I'm sure. Yeah. It'd have to be one of the low-end guys, but I don't know, maybe. You want to have that Tannehill situation because that Tennessee, oh, goodness, man. That Tennessee team, what a shock that was. We'll talk about those at the end. We can wrap up with those.
Right.
So we can do away with the free agent stuff. I think we're good there. Let's go over to the quick hits. We kind of did this all over the place, which is just how the show should have went. Vikings are parting ways with wide receivers coach Drew Petzing. He spent 6 seasons with the Vikings. He joined the franchise when Norm Turner was the offensive coordinator in 2014. So we'll have to see who gets promoted to wide receivers coach. I would guess that it'll be someone in-house. I don't know. Or who knows, man? Maybe Kubiak knows a guy. That'd be great.
Yeah.
Mike's never said that, though. He said we're not gonna jump around and just completely jump in and have to do everything by the end of January. So they'll take their time. They'll see what works for them, see who's out there. I like that.
You know what, man? I like that approach to it. I feel like a lot of teams get this idea that we have to hire all our coaches immediately. Well, does it matter if you hire a wide receiver coach today or in a week from now? How about we find the right guy that fits the team instead of hiring someone immediately? Because having an extra week of having your wide receivers coach position filled at the ass end of January, like what good is that doing you? What head start is that getting you?
What wins the Super Bowl, man?
Oh, if you say so.
That's what wins the Super Bowl right there. I get it because a lot of these teams that are on the 500 or less, window, or they're really bad and they need a new coach, they feel like they have to get someone immediately, otherwise they'll get stolen. But we're not in that position. We made
No.
the Elite Eight of the NFL this year, so I think that's good. We'll take their time. I trust Mike Zimmer. He's got Gary Kubiak sitting right beside him. You don't think between those two guys they can find a wide receivers coach?
Yeah, I think they'll be fine.
Yeah, they'll manage. Not gonna lose any sleep over that.
Bring in Randy Moss. Bring in Randy Moss, wide receiver coach. That'd be awesome.
Adam's listening to this right now, and he's so much. I love it. This is an interesting one because I'm finding out about this as I read it. The Dallas Cowboys have hired recently departed Vikings defensive coordinator George Edwards. He will be coaching the Dallas Cowboy linebackers, and boy, do they have some good ones over there.
Yeah, this one kind of just came out a couple hours before us recording the podcast here.
Nice.
So it's kind of nice to also have the confirmation that George Edwards is actually out as defensive coordinator.
Yeah.
Up until this, as far as I know, it was just speculation that was a thing that was going to happen. I hadn't read that they had actually decided to move forward with getting rid of George Edwards. So that for sure means that we're going to have a new defensive coordinator. This will be interesting to see what the Minnesota Vikings do.
Tiffany, we'll talk about that in just a second.
Yeah, what were we talking about? Adam Zimmer, Mike Zimmer's son, was a name that was brought up for potentially being the new Vikings defensive coordinator. I don't 100% know if I like that or not. I would kind of like to see the Vikings bring someone in, not necessarily to challenge Mike Zimmer, but someone who would say, hey...
I got it. I know
what?
Who it is.
Who?
You keep filling in. I'm going to double check and make sure he's free.
Okay, I was going to say that the Vikings need to bring someone in who is not willing to necessarily challenge Mike Zimmer, because you don't want to have, those two butting heads, but someone who's going to say, hey, this is what I think, this is my defensive philosophy, this is what I want to do, and here are some different ideas that I have. I don't necessarily know that if you just give it to Mike Zimmer's son, if you're going to have any kind of new ideas come in. And I think that for the Vikings to take the next step forward, we kind of need to have a little bit of a fresh set of eyes in a couple different places. And so maybe having a coordinator who would look at things a little bit differently than Mike Zimmer could be beneficial for this team.
Wade Phillips.
There you go.
Wade Phillips has been relieved of duties from the Los Angeles Rams. If you look back, he has ties with Kubiak as well. He was there when Kubiak was released, but he was the D coordinator for the Texans from 11 to 13, the Broncos with Kubiak from 15 to 16. Guys, this has a Gary Kubiak signing all over it. Would you like Phillips as the defensive coordinator? Because I would be okay with that.
Dude, I would love that. I don't know how different his defense is from Mike Zimmer's defense, because clearly Mike Zimmer is not going to be changing his defense at all. That'd
be a star-studded coach of a team. Wade Phillips on the defensive side, Gary Kubiak is the OC, and Zimmer is the head coach. Yes, please.
You know my pick, Rex Ryan.
Rexy?
Bring in Rex Ryan. Let him and Mike Zimmer just yell at one another. That'd be awesome.
Oh, that's great. The last quick hit, we want to talk about the Pro Bowl because we did have a lot of Vikings where alternates that filled in. C.J. Ham, Kirk Cousins, Eric Kendricks, Everson Griffin, and Xavier Rhodes joined. The guys who got voted in the first round. Dalvin Cook, Harrison Smith, and Danielle Hunter. So all total, there are 8 Viking players that are going to be at the Pro Bowl. That's pretty cool, man. I'm glad to see the Vikings got some love.
Yeah.
Xavier Rhodes has no business to be in there. This is a popularity contest, 110%, because guys like Anthony Harris weren't voted in as safeties, but Xavier Rhodes is there. I get it. But this is good for the players, so I'm not going to poo-poo on it. I don't know if they get any incentives or extra money, but it is something to add to their resume, 4-time Pro Bowler or whatever. That's pretty cool.
Pat McAfee, always got to reference Pat McAfee at least once on the show, was talking about how you do get like bonuses and stuff for being in the Pro Bowl, and I believe the team that wins gets paid more than the team that loses, because he was talking about, right? It's an incentive for players to actually try in the Pro Bowl. So like, oh, if you win, you will get paid more money. Because he was talking about how one of the years he was on there, they were trying to convince Andrew Luck and a bunch of the other people.
I did hear this.
They were trying to convince them to go in the fourth quarter so that they could win the game to get the bonus. But Andrew Luck didn't want to do it because, you know,
he's such a nice guy.
He didn't want to disrespect Andy Dalton and be like, we don't want you in the game. Was it Andy Dalton?
Yeah.
It was Andy Dalton. They didn't want to be like, hey, Andy Dalton, fuck you. We want to win the game, so you go on the sideline.
Oh, that's so good, though.
But I thought that was really funny, that the players were like, yeah, we need to put Andrew Luck back out there so we can win this. Like, we're top of Andy Dalton in the Pro Bowl. Like, that to me was really funny.
The Epiphany podcast. Oh, my God. Andy Dalton could be the backup in Minnesota. Let's go.
Let's go, baby. Hey, he would be an okay backup.
Put that red rifle in there. Let's go, man.
Right?
There we go. We solved everything. Kyle and I will be taking over Rick Spielman's job as dueling general managers of the Minnesota Vikings here.
I'm bringing back Adrian Peterson, running back 3.
Okay. If it's third and 2 or less, Adrian, get your ass out there. Got it.
Yep.
Oh, that's pretty much everything for the notes, man. It's going to be interesting. Let's go ahead and talk about the upcoming Super Bowl match. We haven't talked about that. We did not get to see a miracle run from the Tennessee Titans, although it did look that way early. The Kansas City Chiefs defeated the Tennessee Titans. Patrick Mahomes did Patrick Mahomes things. I'm very happy for Andy Reid to get another shot to win a Super Bowl. If you remember back in 2004 or 5, I believe it was, he was at the Philadelphia Eagles and Donovan McNabb, and they lost to the Patriots. He's got a tall task ahead of him because that crazy good running game and terrifying defense in the 49ers will meet him there down in Miami. So it's going to be the Kansas City Chiefs against the San Francisco 49ers in the Super Bowl. I was very happy to watch Green Bay get waxed up and down the floor pretty hard. So that was pretty good. And right now, Kansas City is a 1-point favorite. It's probably because of how crazy good Patrick Mahomes is. After that game against the Texans where they scored like 51 straight points or something like that, I mean, I don't know. I don't know how you could bet against that.
Yeah. Remember when Alex Smith was the quarterback of the Kansas City Chiefs, and he was playing some pretty darn good football. And then they had this guy called Patrick Mahomes who stepped in. And there was a point when they traded him that people were like, man, I don't know, man. They should have kept Alex Smith, man. They should have kept him. I don't know about this. And then immediately, Patrick Mahomes did Patrick Mahomes things, and it worked out pretty good for the Kansas City Chiefs.
I have a lot of respect for, and I do quite enjoy, about 80% of the time, Stephen A. Smith. I think that his charisma is very nice. I think that his delivery and his sarcasm is what makes him the character that he is. But he had the coldest take in history, and I literally stopped my car because I was coming to a stoplight, and I just looked at my console and was like, what the fuck did you just say? He said that he believes Alex Smith could have taken this team to the Super Bowl because Patrick Mahomes has that much talent. And I couldn't for the life of me disagree more and think that it was the exact opposite. I think these guys are good, but I've seen Sammy Watkins on the Buffalo Bills. I've seen Travis Kelce. I believe he's been around long enough to be with Alex Smith, but he didn't look like this. I've seen Tyreek Hill, and I've seen what he does when Chase Daniels not Chase Daniels, that's for the Bears. What's the guy's name? Matt something. Matt Moore. Is that it? Who played us to beat us this year? I've seen Matt Moore come in.
Yeah.
That team don't look the same with Matt Moore in there. So that's the coldest, stupidest take I've ever heard. I can't believe the guy. I've never in my life, and we've lived in an era where we've seen Cam Newton, Aaron Rodgers, Brett Favre, John Elway, Tom Brady, Drew Brees. I've never seen a
Alton.
Muslim throw a ball like this guy does. I've never seen it.
Yeah.
It's crazy.
Here's the thing, though. Here's what makes this Super Bowl really, really fun to watch. Kansas City's offense, phenomenal.
Oh, yeah.
49ers defense, legit. Absolutely legit 49ers defense.
This is the Super Bowl we deserve. It will not, and it better not be like last year's. It better not.
Yeah,
or
I
I'm
hope
going to
not.
start a fire somewhere. It's going to happen.
49ers are like, I don't even really feel that bad that the Vikings got knocked out of the playoffs by them because they are a good football team. Like,
you know what it is? I'll say this right now, and I think it's just a revelation. I'm probably way late to the party for thinking this, but the 49ers are what the Vikings wish they were.
Yeah. If
you do the before and after photo, the Vikings are the before, the Niners are the after. And I don't mean that with any disrespect, because I think that Kirk is good as, if not a little better than Jimmy Garoppolo. We talked about that, but that the way they run the ball and the way the defense is just nasty, I totally think that's how it is.
That is a fun comparison that we should look into sometime in the offseason. The whole Kirk Cousins versus Jimmy Garoppolo comparison would be a fun one to actually sit down and dissect. What is this? Adam Carlson. George Patton withdraws from Browns GM consideration. Hey! Wow, I really thought we were going to lose him. Man.
Hey, Adam, I hope you're still listening. If you are, please comment so we can put it up. But we did some pondering because we just talked about George Edwards going to the Dallas Cowboys to be their linebacker coach. And I said, hey, instead of Adam Zimmer, and Kyle brought this up, he was the originator, instead of Adam Zimmer being promoted to DC, why don't we go grab a veteran that we know does well? And I said, what about Wade Phillips? I know he just got out of LA. And come to find out, he was with the Texans with Kubiak, and then he went to the Broncos when they won a Super Bowl with none other than Gary Kubiak. Adam, if you're still listening, what say you on the Vikings taking a shot with Wade Phillips for a year or two? Because I would love that.
Yeah.
That'd be cool. Thank you for updating us with that, Adam, because we did not have that in the notes. That's good news for Vikings fans. So George Patton will be sticking around. I
like that. George Patton. George Patton is a name that's came up multiple years in a row now.
Yeah.
And he continues to stick around with Minnesota. So that is a big, big plus for us. I really thought this was the year that he was going to leave the franchise, but we are lucky to have him.
I'm excited about that. Thank you for updating us with that, Adam. He still pops in. Even when we're not here, he's always watching.
He says no. Just no.
All right, fair enough. I think that's about the end of the show, guys. I don't really have anything else. I'm not really sure what we're going to do as far as the timeline next week. I will be on vacation. I can do stuff at night, so we could do a late show at some point next week. But I think we should
figure it out.
I think we should do the awards next week for you guys. You guys can comment on that. We'll head it at the top of the show next week. I'll put it in the chat here, and then you guys can chime in with your picks. But I think we should do our picks and Super Bowl prediction because it's Pro Bowl weekend now, starting this weekend. But next week we'll be gearing.
More importantly, the Royal Rumble is on Sunday.
Oh, that's true. Adam talked about that.
That is, even if you are a lapsed WWE fan, like I really don't watch much of their product anymore, the Royal Rumble is always fun. It is always a blast to watch. So I am looking forward to watching that.
I'm going to do some promotions here. We're going to wrap the show up. You guys should head on over to the Viking Age and support our guy, Adam Carlson. He just chimed in because he listened to the show, helping out his family this week because he's a swell guy. So thanks for helping us out at the end. Check out Adam Carlson's work on the Viking Age. If you go to his articles and you interact with him in the comments, you give it a little heart and a like, it boosts his ratings. And you know what that does? That puts money in his pocket because he is a writer. He is also over on Undead Walking. If you are a fan of The Walking Dead or Undead. What's the other show that they did off of that I cannot think about?
I don't know.
Anyways, Undead Walking, because this is not my forte. Sorry, Adam. Undead Walking. If you're a Walking Dead fan, he does pieces over there. Got the inside information for that. That would be really good. You should check that out and support these guys on the show. Last but not least, Kyle West can promote his stuff because I'm lazy.
Thank you. You can check out phantasmdigital.com. That is the name of my website where you can buy some of my photography work. You can also score yourself some Purple People podcast merchandise. You can get our name on a t-shirt. You can get it on a coffee mug. You can get it on a mouse pad or a phone case or whatever you would like. You can also check out some of my other pieces of photography and artwork that I also have available on digital copies. You can get on pretty much anything else that you want as well, too. So check that out. There's also a link up over on the Purple People Podcast Facebook page. You should definitely take a look.
Yeah, you should. You can support us. We don't do this like most YouTube channels where we're doing that stupid like, subscribe, hit the notification bell. I personally...
But you should.
I hate it.
I hate that shit.
No, I like it at the end of the show because we still have 4 people listening, and if they have stuck around this long, they can take an advertisement for 2 minutes. But this, not at the beginning. No, we don't do that here.
I want you to do a cartwheel like Pat McAfee. Can you do a cartwheel?
I can do a cartwheel.
You do a cartwheel? Okay.
Yeah, we'll do the cartwheel in the middle of the show, right when we're talking.
Yeah.
Well, hello there. But yeah. Going out, it's the Super Bowl teams are set. There's been some changes at offensive coordinator, and it's the off-season, guys, so bear with us. It'll be pretty cut and dry. Here pretty soon, we'll start gearing up for the draft and doing.
That's Adam's forte.
Yeah, that's definitely Adam's forte. I want to get a little more in depth of that and start researching some of the first-round guys I think we could take and weigh in a little more than we have in years past. But that's what we're gearing up for. But right now, it's winding down for the Super Bowl, and I'm going to root for the Kansas City Chiefs because if you beat the Vikings, then I don't want you to win. I don't know.
It don't matter. I just want to see a good game. The Patriots aren't in it, so that's the important part.
That's absolutely a plus. But yeah, that's it. That's all we got for this week.
Yep.
Thanks to everybody that tuned in the chat. We'll let you know on the Facebook page. Sometime next week, we'll get a Super Bowl preview show. And we'll do an award show in the same one. So that'll be fun. We'll try to get the whole band together. But, yeah, on that yawn and the end of that note, we want to say thank you, everyone in the chat. Go to our Facebook page, like it, share it with all your friends, subscribe on the YouTube channel. Thank you for tuning in. And as always, stay classy, Minnesota.